Good morning, everyone. It's Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is Monday, the 17th of October, 2022. Our topic today is statues and ritual humiliation. Click on the subscribe button here in the lower right to subscribe to future episodes of Civil War Chat, and also the notification bell in the far upper right. If you click that, then you can be sure that your kids, or if it applies, your grandkids are going to get great Halloween treats this Halloween. So click on that as well. Let me go ahead and get started with the presentation on statues and ritual humiliation. This is actually a reproduction of a blog post by James Bacon of Bacon's Rebellion that he did last week. So I'm posting it now on October 17th. He did it last week. The movement to expunge Confederate statues from the public realm has reached a tipping point. It started with the proposition that many people, blacks especially, found sculptures honoring the defenders of a slave nation to be offensive, regardless of the meaning of those memorials conveyed to others. But the rhetoric has transmogrified from a cry to respect the sensitivities of blacks into a vengeful purging of Southern white heritage. Hundreds of statues and memorials were erected across the South in gratitude to the sacrifices of the Civil War generation and in the spirit of national reconciliation. Statues were not a, quote, Southern thing. Visit Gettysburg to see innumerable statues and memorials to Northern generals, military units, and soldiers. The veterans of the Civil War could forgive and forget, but for the modern day iconoclasts, history has no statute of limitation. There is no forgiveness. Indeed, the movement now seems animated by a desire to humiliate. The vengeful spirit can be seen at Virginia colleges and universities in the systematic expungement of names and memorials of any figure with any connection with the Confederacy, even if someone was conscripted into the Confederate Army, regardless of his contributions to the institution or to the broader society. And when he says of the institution, he's referring to the institution that originally honored them with the statue, which might be a college or a university. Now, continuing with his remarks, it can be seen in the decision to hand over the city of Richmond's defenestrated Confederate statues, not to the Civil War Museum, the Virginia Historical Society, or to any of the 24 other museums, preservation groups, and cultural organizations that asked for them, but to the Black History Museum and Cultural Center of Virginia. Far from treating these statues respectfully, the museum leaders have agreed to lend 4 of them to the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles, where they will be displayed this November, along with contemporary art commissioned to, quote, reconsider, close quote, the Confederate tributes in the context of Black history. One can get a sense of how the Los Angeles exhibit will treat the statues by looking to the Valentine Richmond History Center, where the statue of Jefferson Davis, admittedly not the most sympathetic character, is displayed in its toppled, mutilated, and spray-painted form. But nowhere can the spirit of vengeance be seen more clearly than in Charlottesville, where the city gave a statue of Robert E. Lee to the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center, which then, quote, dissembled it. They actually cut it into pieces. The museum proposes to melt down those pieces and turn them into a new piece of art, undoubtedly one that will be heavily freighted with politically progressive symbolism. That transfer is being disputed in the courts, and the outcome is in doubt, but the message comes through loud and clear. We have the statue now, you can't have it, and we're going to stick it to you. Leftists and progressives have created a narrative that the statues were erected in support of the lost cause mythology that upheld white supremacy during the Jim Crow era. Some memorials, in my case, I'm going to say a few, undoubtedly were put into the place for that very reason. And I can understand why it might be justifiable to remove those pieces. But not all were. Leftists are creating their own mythology. I'm going to repeat that for emphasis. Leftists are creating their own mythology. So when they refer to lost cause mythology, we need to keep in mind, and they should recognize that they are creating their own mythology. The truth is, I'm continuing with Bacon's comments now. The truth is that Southern communities raised many statues to honor the heroism and sacrifices of the men and women who endured the searing conflict of total war. Look at the plaques, read the testimonials. The memorials weren't honoring slavery. They weren't honoring Jim Crow laws. Many were tributes of love and appreciation. The white Southerners who erected them and those who seek to preserve them impart an entirely different meaning than the leftists do. We seek to preserve the memorials because they honor the virtues of courage, integrity, martial valor, and shared sacrifice. Preservationists understand that times change and values change. They acknowledge that there are competing perspectives about the meaning of the statues. And when the statues came down, some of us thought, well, it's a shame, but maybe such controversial symbols were inappropriate for public spaces. Maybe it's better that they be put into museums, battlefields, or cemeteries. Hopefully we can just move past this. But for the left, there is no moving past it. In cities like Richmond and Charlottesville, where they control the municipal machinery, militants aren't interested in reconciliation. They are carrying out a cultural cleansing and are bent upon inflicting humiliation. And the struggle won't end until the humiliation is complete. Okay, that ends Jim Bacon's commentary, but let me just remark here on one of his points. He says, you know, in places like Richmond and Charlottesville, where they, meaning the social justice warriors, control the municipal machinery, the militants aren't interested in reconciliation. That really kind of is a eye-opening remark when you think in terms of Reconstruction. While it is fair to condemn the Ku Klux Klan, it should be noted that during Reconstruction, when the carpetbag governments were in power, they controlled the municipal machinery. They controlled the state machinery. And they even, in states like South Carolina and Louisiana, they had a voter returning board in which, regardless of whatever the votes were, the voter returning board was controlled by the carpetbaggers, and the returning board had the authority to count the votes. Yeah. The guy that determines who the winner is the guy who counts the votes. And of course, what they did, they went along party lines, and the party lines would be the Republican party lines in those states where the Republicans were in control, which at the time when there were carpetbaggers was most of them. And if you look at the 1876 presidential election, That's exactly what happened. President Hayes was elected by one electoral vote, 185 to 184 over the Democrat Samuel Tilden. He got the electoral votes from three carpetbag governors, three carpetbag governments, Louisiana, South Carolina, and Florida. Without them, he would not have been president, and Samuel Tilden would have been president. And I also want to conclude also with, I guess maybe this is an encouraging remark, since Jim Bacon published this at his website. Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, has actually made a comment not about Confederate statues, but about the what he called scolding that social justice warriors are doing, and explaining that it is harmful to their own ends. When the social justice warriors' objective is to scold their opponents and thereby get them canceled, Obama is saying, "Hey, what you're doing is you're making people feel like they're walking on eggshells, and you're not listening to them. And if you listen to them, you may be able to see a point of view that can help unify the country." Now, he didn't say that with respect to Confederate statues. He just said that with respect to his criticism of cancel culture. But I see it as something that merits mention in the context of Confederate memory. Now, I wish again to show you, look, critical race theory and identity politics are gaining purchase in our schools. Now, I want to assure you that if critical race theory becomes the accepted interpretation of American history, or even Western culture, the history of Western civilization, there will be no Confederate statues or memorials standing anywhere. No statues, no schools named for Confederates, no army bases named for Confederates, no street names named for Confederates. That is how pernicious critical race theory is. It is the true heart of darkness of racism in year 2022. The problem is, while people are opposing critical race theory, far too many of us don't really know what it is. You need to know what it is. And I recommend the Dreadful Frauds by Philip Lee, Critical Race Theory and Identity Politics. This book is going to explain to you what it is, what its objective is, and you will see when you get through with this that it is the true heart of darkness of racism today. And ironically, it's not anti-Black racism, it's anti-white racism. And it's really, gosh, it's really Black supremacy. It's really a school of Black supremacy. But that's kind of a label. You got to get the facts here, and decide for yourself what kind of label you want to put on it. The Dreadful Frauds by Philip Lee. It's $16 at Amazon. If you want an autographed copy, it's $20 from me. You got to email me, Phil, PHIL _ Lee, LEIGH at me.com. Okay, that is our show for today. And I want to thank you for watching. I look forward to talking to you next time.